Hello everyone, what's up? Prince15 here with another review of Star Wars The Acolyte. Today we are taking a look at Episode 8, the final episode in the first season. So, yeah, that was the end of it. I liked it. I thought it was good. There was some cool things in it. I'll say I really hope we get a second season now, for a number of reasons. First of all, it seems like there's a conclusion here, but so cliffhanger is not the right word to use, but there's definitely more story to be told. So I am really curious how they're going to move forward with this series, because they could pull a Rian Johnson here and say that, oh yeah, no, Leslie Hyland's just busy. She's going to get back to making Star Wars one day. Because like Rian Johnson, where they said that he was going to get his whole own trilogy of Star Wars movies. Then the fan reception to release not even fan reception, because there's a lot of people that like The Last Jedi, but the discourse around The Last Jedi was so toxic that they're like, you know what, Rian Johnson's just really busy working on his Knives Out movies. So, he'll come back to Star Wars when he's ready. And I'm sure that's true. But for the meantime, it really does feel like, yeah, we're not going to pursue that right now because everyone got angry at us for what we did with Last Jedi. It does kind of feel like that. So I'm curious if they're going to pull a similar move here with the Acolyte. I can maybe see like a middle ground where they allow her to finish off the show as a comic book and they put that out through Marvel Publishing. I could see that happening as well. But I think the scenario I do want to happen is I do want this show to continue. I think there's and I'm going to get into some of them, but there's some clear problems with this show that do diminish its quality. And I've kind of been talking about them throughout the weeks, where I'm kind of scratching my head, like, how did some of these decisions get through? But overall, I thought the story, looking at the bullet points and what happens and stuff, I think it's a good story. I think there's a lot of interesting ideas here, especially to see some of those ideas explored more in a second season. I think is because this is, I've seen a lot of calls for the end of these 8 episode seasons, and I don't necessarily think an 8 episode season is the worst thing in the world if you pace out your show correctly. For instance, I've said this a couple weeks ago, I think The Mandalorian does fine with its 8 episode seasons. It's not a huge deal to me, the way they pace those stories out. But The Acolyte, to me, really felt like it needed a much... But the way the pacing worked, it felt too short and too long at the same time. And I think that comes a lot down to the editing and what episodes were what, which I'll get into here in a minute. But a second season where they clean up some of that and they're focusing more on the actual, because that's the way this show was pitched, is that this show is about the Sith. This is about the dark side. This show is going to be exploring the era when the Sith were still thought to be extinct and the activities they get up to in the shadows under the noses of the Jedi. And as for this first season, we only get like a little taste of that. We don't get a whole lot of what was promised in that initial pitch at Star Wars Celebration, when the show was announced. So moving forward, a second season that really does focus more on the Sith and the training in the dark arts and all of that, and the different, to delve more into that statement of the dark side of the Force as a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural, stuff like that. To delve more into that in a second season, I would love, because that's really what I was hoping for with this season. Now, when it quickly became clear that's not what we were getting, I shifted my expectations. Like, okay, I can't judge it based on that. That's not what this is. This is something else. So for what we got, I think it's fine. I'm not even going to say good. I'm not going to say bad. It's squarely in fine for me, and that really comes down to the editing and the pacing of the show, which I thought was just abysmal. As I said, I think last week, I've been pretty forgiving of most Star Wars things that have come out. I have my sore spots here or there with it, with a couple things. Um, Obi-Wan Kenobi I thought was just really mid. Didn't really know why they felt the need to tell that story. Every other story I felt has been justified with them telling with these Star Wars shows and stuff. But Obi-Wan was the first one. I'm like, why does the story need to get told? It's like when I at first when I thought it was basically just going to be, we're going to do something really similar to the uh, novel, the Kenobi novel, where he's just piddling around on Tatooine. It's really a character study. I was really excited. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But then when they throw in Vader and stuff, I'm like, okay, this is getting too large. I don't think we need to tell the story this way. We're starting to mess with A New Hope potentially. Um. So the Acolyte, I felt just it justifies its existence with its premise and everything. So, but this is definitely the Star Wars property I am the most down on, um, from a storytelling point of view, because I think the premise is really solid. A Jedi murder mystery that introduces us to these Darksiders, and we see what the Sith are up to in this time. At this point in time, I think that's a really strong premise. Exploring more of the High Republic, of course, that is a welcome concept. So basically, everything involving this show in the lead up to it, I'm like, oh, this sounds good. I think this could be good, but I just don't know what happened with the editing and the pacing for this show. So I mean, I think for me, it really did a number on it. A lot of these things that people are quote unquote complaining about on the internet, I don't think are issues at all. There's nothing in this show that breaks canon. Some of these people are just being whiny crybabies because that's like Star Wars Theory and a couple other of his ilk. They've clearly attracted an audience that doesn't like Star Wars anymore, and so bashing on it is how they make their money. Which, okay, fine. I mean, if that's how you want to make money, by just not liking anything, it sounds like a miserable existence to me. But whatever, you do you. So some people like that clearly were going to hate this show regardless of if it was good or not. Um, but for me, it's like I went into this wanting to like it, and I was really let down by the pacing and the editing. Now that we've come to the end here and we can see the entire story mapped out, I think there's one big change that they could make to really help the way this show tells its story that I think could be a big improvement. And it's kind of what I was talking about last week, where my opinion of last week's episode was really going to hinge on how things wrap up this week. Um, Now that I've seen all of it, I really do think that what we should have gotten instead was an hour-long premiere focusing on telling the backstory of what happened on Brendok. You see, as I was discussing last week, you see the twins' perspective, you see the Jedi's perspective, all of that going on, but of course the episode leaves out the certain details where we don't, of course, soul killing the mother, the way the witches all die, that stuff gets left out after a point from the episode. After a point in the episode, we do stick to Osha's perspective, and we don't see all of that because and then we move forward. The second episode is episode 1. The third episode is episode 2. And then the fourth episode, I feel like doesn't, which would have actually been episode 4. So episode 4 remains where it is in the number count. I don't think that episode feels. I don't think it feels as odd if you start with all the flashback stuff beforehand, even leaving it as is. And now, would it necessarily be the strongest episode? No, probably not. But I think I think as a just kind of we're moving this episode's really all about moving the plot along episode. It works much better in this new episode order and new edit. Then the fifth episode stays the fifth episode because you get all the fighty slash slash death. Then next episode follows, so that'd be episode 6. That one remains the same. Then episode 7 is this episode combined with the remaining flashbacks left over that were cut out. So the 7th episode, as we have it now, that one doesn't really exist. And this episode that we got, episode 8, is then combined with the flashbacks that are left over, and that I think would better. And then you had the reveal, because the way this alternate edit in my head would work is we get all the backstory, we see what happens, or at least we think we know what happens, and going forward with that information, we think we know that it helps us connect to Osha as a character better, because we think we know how things went. We think that May is an evil Sith apprentice who was responsible for killing her entire family, shows no remorse, and now just wants to go around and murder Jedi and unintentionally frame her sister. But then as we're seeing more of May, we're starting to go, well, hold on. We sympathize with this little girl, now adult. We're on her side, but we don't really like May, but hold on. She has a different perspective. Why does she have a different perspective? Is she just deluded? What's going on here? And it starts to raise questions, and it starts tickling at the back of your mind instead of kind of from the jump seeming obvious. Now, some people would have maybe picked up on, well, it probably maybe still be kind of obvious, but I think it would be it would be a more natural way to move into that something's not quite right here mindset. Then seeing more of May, we have more things going on. We're like, oh, well, do we trust Soul? Do we not trust Soul? Hold on, what's going on here? I think the re-editing it this way makes more of those feelings more natural, because the way it is now, I never really felt invested with the way the story is told as is, where the way we see the whole third episode being a flashback, breaking up the pacing, then we suddenly cut back in the fourth episode, blah blah blah. The way as it stands now, with Soul saying, "Oh, I'll explain everything to you later," it's like, oh, gee, what a surprise! We don't know. We don't know everything. I'm so shocked by this. It seems like painfully obvious and that something's wrong, and so you don't really connect with Osha, which is one of the big complaints I have been seeing outside of, yeah, they broke canon, yeah, which are not legitimate critiques, I don't think. But I have seen a lot of people saying that they didn't really connect with Osha or May as characters, and I think this would help solve that, because if kind of putting the audience in Osha's shoes and showing most of her perspective of that flashback, and then having later Soul going, I'll explain everything to you later, we as an audience might have definitely picked up on the fact that not everything is as it seems. But we're at that point in time, if the new edit is handled correctly, we will hopefully be more on Osha's side and be more concerned than like, oh, surprise, nothing's as it seems, and we'd be more like, oh, okay, well, so what's going on here? So I'm really concerned now. It's like, we thought we knew the truth, so what are you hiding from us? It helps us more empathize with Osha in that way, which writing the script, I would assume, is what they were going for with that. But then it does remove the whole twin reveal from the premiere. But I mean, I mean, considering that was done so early on, I don't really think the twin reveal for the audience is a big whoop compared to all this other stuff that they could be doing alternatively. Because if I'm gonna kind of skip forward a little bit, so it goes because after that we go 4, 5, 6. That's all the same. So then you have the finale, which would be the 7th and last episode of the season. Then we still don't know the exact details of what happened, and we're like, okay, what happened? Then you have the fight on Bryndock between the Stranger and Soul. May interrupts. She confronts Soul. Then you have a moment where, and then because watching this episode, there were so many good moments. I was in my head going, you could edit in a flashback there, you could edit in a flashback there, you could edit in a flashback there, and just these little glimpses and flashes. You don't need to show every painstaking detail of what happened. We can fill in the gaps ourselves, and then you can show other things. For instance, like when Venestra arrives and finds Soul's body, and the other Jedi scurry off. This would be a good moment to showcase another Force ability, where I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's like a perception thing. It's where Cal Kestis, that he uses that in the Jedi Fallen Order games, where he can see an object's history. Rey actually uses it a little bit in The Force Awakens and Last Jedi, or not The Last Jedi, excuse me, Rise of Skywalker a little bit. You get some flashes of that. So this would be another good showcase of that power. Quinlan Voss has it as well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. So that Force power where she enters the space, and then she is then, because they've built up this thing about her not liking hyperspace in these like 2 episodes she's in, really prominently. And why is that? And the show as is doesn't really have a payoff for it. It's just, and it's because you have the center in this episode. How's your stomach? And it's like, that's my head, actually. What do you want? That it seems like I know it's canon to the character as she is written in the books. But for those that know nothing of the books, such as myself, so I've just read that online. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know that about her. That's interesting. What are you going to do with that? As it turns out, nothing. But I think, that could be a great setup for then her being on the planet. She said that there's something about hyperspace, and she sees visions through hyperspace or whatever. Why is that? What is she in tune with? And then we see what that exact power is. She is in the space where this fight happened, and then she experiences this brutal fight between this Wookiee Jedi and the others, and then the accidental murder of all of these witches. And she instantly recognizes what happened, and then we get the rest of the, it's like she kind of threw his soul under the bus a little bit, and blah blah blah, and everything unfolds the rest of the way. So I think that's a better way to showcase that, and then having Soul explain to Osha what happened, and then using that flashback. I think then we as the audience feel that betrayal that Osha feels, and we're more in her mindset. And while we we're knowing that what she's doing is wrong, she's killing him with the Force. We know that's wrong. We're kind of more on her side. It's not because it wouldn't be, because this is where I think the promise of where this series could go should it get more seasons. This is the promise I think it could hold, because I actually really like what I think should have been the last shot. I was right. I'm going to raise my hand and wave it. It's like, hey, we got a Yoda cameo, called it. Granted, that wasn't that difficult to call. I'm pretty sure they're using the puppet from The Last Jedi as well, which is cool. But so we had our Yoda cameo at the end, but it felt so teasy. It's like, we didn't need that. I thought a much stronger ending would have been ending on the shot of the Stranger and his Acolyte. The whole point behind the show. And what I really like about, especially the concept of that being the last shot of this first season, maybe only season, who knows, is that being the actual last shot of the show, is it's a reverse Star Wars ending. Because most of the time, in so many of these movies, TV shows, comics, etc., the last image is a lot of times you have characters staring wistfully into the sunset as the Force theme plays. There's some sort of victory they've achieved and everything. And it's like, you hear the Force theme, and then dun 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 dun, and the music plays and all that. Where ending this first season with the stranger and his acolyte staring off into the sunset this time is actually a reverse on all that, because they're the villains. They're the bad guys. They are, assuming they are the Sith. This is the darkness that lurks in the shadows of the galaxy that wants to ultimately have power over everyone in the galaxy. That the same lineage that gives rise to Darth Sidious and the Empire and the First Order and etc. 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 and Darth Vader and all the typical Star Wars things we know of. So ending your first season on those two and going and kind of saying, all right, we got our Jedi in the beginning, but now we've flipped the script on who our protagonists are in the show. Our protagonists going forward are the bad guys. The Jedi are now the antagonists. The good guys are our antagonists, and and then ending on that is a powerful, really bold statement. Not really a statement, but just a bold ending for a Star Wars show for a first season. I think that's brilliant. And then they undercut it with Yoda. Dang it! Not that I mind a Yoda cameo, but it's a weird edit. It's like, why did you? It's like it's a deliberate tease. You didn't. It's a much stronger ending to end on that and throw. Because how much sense would it make? It'd be a fine edit where you have Finestra talking with the Chancellor and all these senators and blah blah blah. We'll make sure to cooperate, etc. etc. Then you cut to the door is open. Sorry to interrupt you, Master, but we need to talk. This is her reporting to the High Council. The Jedi are under threat because of all these things going on. There's Yoda. There's your tease. Then end on the actual thematically really cool shot. This is what I've been talking about. Like all these 8 weeks, or 7 weeks, I guess, because it was a 2-episode premiere. But you know what I mean. That there is good story material in here. They are just they're just using it so incorrectly. They're destroying their pacing. They're not telling the story in as intriguing a way as they could. And this is not like, oh, I have to rewrite the show to fix it. I mean, no, this is just re-editing the episodes as they are. You don't have to remove or add anything to the story to make any of these changes work. So I have no clue what happened behind the scenes at Lucasfilm for them to go, yeah, this isn't a good state. Let's send it out like this. Because if it had been edited properly, this could have potentially been one of my favorite Star Wars things of all time. Because like I said, it's like, okay, it's not the first season isn't exactly what was promised to us, but it's setting that up, going here, it's the subversion of expectations. Clearly, a lot of Star Wars fans don't like having their expectations subverted, but it's a good subversion of expectations where people just tuning in because they think this is just a Star Wars thing and the Jedi are the good guys and blah, 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 where they see it's like, oh, wait, this story is actually the reverse of what I thought it is. Oh, now going forward, it's going to be all about the bad guys. That's cool. That is really super duper uber cool. And they kind of messed it up. So yeah, so I liked this episode fine. Again, it's kind of, I'm going to quote Transformers Age of Extinction here, but you got to look at the junk and see the treasure. The editing and pacing is so atrocious in the show. And maybe that's being hyperbolic. It's bad. I wouldn't say it's atrocious, but it's certainly bad. It's like episode 3. How do you mess up a shot, reverse shot? There's weird scene edits in the 5th episode, despite how good that is overall with the lightsaber fights. The ending, they kind of ruined the ending of this last episode because I think they should have ended on the actual sunset shot, blah, blah, blah. But there's such good material to be mined from this premise, and even in the show as it stands now, I don't know how many times I could say it. They just did not tell it in the correct way, and I just think that's really, really unfortunate. Because watching the lightsaber fights, even the like the crouching next to hidden crate dragon sequence where Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but Star Warsified, where Soul and the Stranger float off of the platform, and then we have a slow-mo twirl and kick and stuff. It's like, oh, give me more of that, please. That's awesome. I think that's something that needs to be explored in Star Wars more. That's a great idea to have some choreography like that. Not completely, because I'm not actually a huge fan of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I think the combat in that is too floaty and too all over the place. But utilizing it sparingly here and there, like this episode did, I love it. I think that's great. It's it makes for a cool shot. It's slow mo without being slow mo because it's still happening in real time. And then just kind of that. I wish they'd kind of cut to a close up at one point, but I understood why they kept the wide shot. But it's like that look on Soul's face as he's floating down, staring at the stranger before they lock blades again, and when they touch the ground, it's like that. That's all great. I love that. And actually, I've been bashing the editing left and right here, but you know what a good edit in this show was that I did like when May and Osha are fighting in their old bedroom, and then they lock arms or whatever, and then it cuts to the blades of the lightsabers locked. Ooh, that was good. That I liked. That was an actual good edit. Hey, good job, show. See, you can do it. You can edit things correctly and be cool. But yeah, so, I mean, I guess it was a good ending, but it's not without its flaws, like other people are saying. I don't think it's an absolute travesty dumpster fire like some people are pretending it is. It's a heavily flawed show that hopefully the creative team can use as a lesson to learn and move forward, and hopefully get a second season to have refined those mistakes and do better next time. Because I think there's just so many open avenues to continue this story, especially, which I haven't even brought up now. I'm a half hour into this. I haven't even brought it up yet. We have a Darth Plagueis cameo. We're assuming that's Darth Plagueis. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it is Darth Plagueis because that pretty much looks like his design from the expanded universe. But I mean, Darth Plagueis cameo, what does that mean? What implications does that have? How's the rule of two going to, it's like, I mean, the rule of two has to be something that exists at this point, right? It's like, I'm assuming it's like, but is it, so if this is Darth Plagueis, are they, because there's so much been changed in this current canon compared to the expanded universe. If this is Darth Plagueis, is he Darth Plagueis yet, or is he going to end up becoming May's student, or excuse me, Osha's student when she inevitably betrays the stranger to keep the rule of two intact? I don't know. It's like, why is he on that planet? It raises all of these questions that I feel like demand to be answered. And then of course, how does that eventually tie into Palpatine? And unless the Highland is, or it's not Highland, it's Headland, I think. Whatever, the writer of this show, the creator, she has said that she has answers for all that. So I'm intrigued. I want to see where this goes forward. I just hope that they use some of the constructive criticism and feedback, such as I have hopefully been giving, and use that as a learning tool to improve going forward. Because I think this concept really does have a lot of merit. So yeah. I think that's kind of it. I didn't really talk about the episode too much itself, but because it really is, it's less. I mean, this is really less about the episode itself. Like I said, the episode itself was fine. There was good moments in it. They kind of ruined the ending a little bit with that deliberate Yoda tease, which I think should have been earlier. But I don't know. There wasn't really. It wrapped it up. I think it's satisfying as is, but it was a little quick. I would have liked to chew on some more stuff, and I think that's where them adding in the flashbacks in this episode would have helped that. So yeah. So yeah, that is the Acolyte. I guess we will wait and see if we get a season 2 out of this. Yeah, so I guess that's it for these reviews for now. I guess we will wait and see if I'm ever back with more reviews of the Acolyte after this, or if this is where it ends and it gets turned into a novel or a comic book going forward. So in terms of Star Wars reviews, though, next up on the list should be Skeleton Crew. There's been a Lego set leak. There's been other merchandising leaks. So this show has to be somewhere on the horizon. I'm very curious why we haven't seen anything from it yet. I would almost say that bodes ill for its quality. It's like, why haven't they shown anything off from it yet? But I mean, they sort of kind of did the same thing with the Acolyte, but but I mean, the Acolyte as it's not a bad show. They just didn't edit it very well. That doesn't necessarily mean that Skeleton Crew is going to be bad. And that's why they're hiding it. I don't know. But I don't know. Skeleton Crew sounds like it could be interesting, so I'm eager to see what they do with that. There's rumors saying that that's going to be out later in the fall. That'd be nice. I would like that. Probably because in terms of the Disney Plus scheduling, Agatha All Along is next. Is it called Agatha All Along, or is it Agatha Coven of Darkness? I honestly can't remember what the heck they're actually naming this show. So that would be next on Disney Plus's lineup of big shows that's going to get all the media attention and stuff, and that starts in late September. That sounds right for kind of to lead up to spooky season. So, maybe then that means that if things hold true, then Skeleton Crew would be like late November, early December, and we get it into the very beginning of 2025 as well. That sounds about right to me. We'll just have to wait and see. So yeah, that is my review series for the Acolyte. I hope you enjoyed watching these videos. It wasn't all rah, this is great, like a lot of my other Star Wars stuff. Had some pretty sizable critiques to give this show, unfortunately. But hey, it is what it is. Star Wars churns out so much content that not everything can be a winner, unfortunately. We just kind of have to hope for the best for each project. But so yeah. So anyway, thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. And follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Those links are in the description below, and I will see you guys next time for Skeleton Crew, hopefully. So until then, thank you for watching, and goodbye.